Hello again, everybody, and welcome again to Culture Academy. It's so great to have you with us today. Well, if you love to travel, you are an expat, or you live in a foreign country, or you like just to learn about other cultures, this is the right place for you. Well, today we want to learn about the importance of individual and group cultures. An African proverb says, if you want to travel fast, go alone. But if you want to travel far, go together. This is an expression for individual and group cultures. Which one is better, going alone or going in a group? Well, it depends. This is exactly the subject of individual and collective cultures. We will look at that in detail right after the intro. Actually, we have talked a little bit before about this topic in the video of cultural scales. But today we want to go much deeper into the subject. So let us start with an example why a good understanding of the individualistic and the collective culture is important. Let's imagine your company or organization expands to Kenya, and you are the responsible person to establish the new office in Nairobi. You deal with the local director and you find out that he had already employed his brother as a financial manager and his cousin as a marketing manager. You do not like the nepotism and you are very displeased about such an immoral act. So you want him to replace his relatives. But he does not see any problems employing family members whom he really can trust. Well, why don't you like it? What are the cultural values which clash with your understanding in this example? You probably have guessed it already. It's a difference between the individualism and the collective culture. We can distinguish them as me and we cultures. Let us look at the details and attributes of the me and we cultures. Individualism. The interest of the individual is more important than the interests of the group. In collectivism, it's the interest of the group which is more important than the interests of the individual. Gerd Hofstede, in his book Cultures and Organization, says that the majority of people in this world live in societies which are rather group-oriented than independent-oriented or individualism-oriented. So first let us explore the individual culture or society and try to describe it. Individualist people are born into a nuclear family. Their parents, brothers and sisters maybe. There are other relatives, uncles and aunts, but they are elsewhere. They live elsewhere, they are further away. They grow up and soon learn to think of themselves as I or as me. Friendships are voluntarily and need to be fostered. Memberships in group are temporarily. They learn these are my toys. This is my room. Children are taught to stand on their own feet, to have their own opinions. They learn to develop opinions of their own. Transgression leads to guilt and to a loss of self-respect. Consumption patterns show self-supporting lifestyle, and media is the primary source for the information. Now let's look at the collectivistic cultures. Collectivist people are born into a we group or an in-group, which is a family. In collectivist societies, people grow up in the extended family or in a tribe or in a clan. These are anthropological expressions. People belong to a we group, there's a lifelong loyalty. Friendships are predetermined, mainly out of the we group. Other people are they groups. So there's our group and there's their group. Children learn to comply to others' opinions within the group. Personal opinions do not exist. And the transgression leads to shame and to losing face for oneself and also for the group. Consumption patterns show dependence on others. Like the African migrant in Europe, he needs to send money back to the family in Africa. Social networks are the primary source of information for collectivist people. So now let us examine the attributes of individualistic and collective cultures. An individual style means people prefer to take an individual initiative, to put the individual before the groups, to use personal guidelines in personal situations, and to focus on themselves, to judge people based on their individual traits, to make decisions individually, to be non-conformist when it's necessary, to move in and out groups when it's needed and when it's desired. People prefer to use a low context and a direct communication style. To be rather independent, to prefer to deal with a family member is nepotism and immoral. On the other side, a group or collective style means people prefer to act cooperatively and establish a group relationship and group goals. They prefer to put the team or the group before the individual. They like to standardize guidelines. They make loyalty to friends a high priority, and they determine their identity through the group affiliation. People like this also prefer to make decisions as groups. They like to conform to the social norms, and they prefer to keep group memberships for a lifetime. These people prefer to use rather a high context and indirect communication style, and are rather interdependent. For them, to deal with a family member is normal and is evidence of a trust relationship. Now let us look at countries where they are on the individualism and the collectivism scale. On the side of the individualism scale, you have rather the Western countries. Well, first you find the USA, Australia, Great Britain, you find Canada, the Netherlands, also France and Italy and Germany. Sweden is on that side. In the middle scale, you find Austria, Argentina, Russia, Spain, Japan, Brazil, Turkey, the Philippines, and Arab countries. On the more collective side, you find many Asian countries like China or Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia is on that side, Thailand, Korea and Indonesia. But also you can find West African countries and some countries in Latin America, like Ecuador, Peru and Colombia. Think about where you find yourself on this scale and find your host culture or your cross-cultural teammate or your friend, and then start to compare the differences. So why is it so important to know where you are on the individual or collective scale? Let's look at cultures. They can change. Concerning the individual and collective preferences. Many Western countries have been more collective in the past than individual. So they switched around to individualism. Hofstede's studies show that a country that becomes wealthier and more capitalist in the society becomes also more individualistic. The growth of individualism leads to a decline of interdependence and solidarity. Just think about the debate of the healthcare issue, the Obamacare in the USA, and it's mainly a question of interdependence and a question of individualism. It seems to be a struggle between individualist and collective thinking. Let us walk through and try to apply this we can ask, what does it mean for our cross-cultural living? Now let us return to the initial example of the Kenyan director employing the family members. This man acted very normal following his collective culture. So depending in which culture we reside, we need to ask ourselves if we live in a me culture or if we live in a we culture. Questions about the daily life, but also about the workplace, need to be asked and need to be answered. For example, how do the people employ other people here in this country? Or how would you lead people from an individualistic or a collective culture? So is there a difference? How would you motivate your people? So motivation in an individualistic country might look different than in a collective country. How do you do performance management in a collective country or with a collective team without people or subordinates losing face? Another question is, how would you train your people? Do you use an individualistic approach when you live in a collectivistic culture? No, not necessarily. Or vice versa. Do you use a collective approach if you live in an individualistic culture? Well, actually, most training packages are designed today for people from individualistic societies. Watch out for training methods which use a lot of open sharing and the sharing of feelings. These training methods are not suitable for collective cultures. If you're an expert and have people from other cultures on your team, or if you have a neighbor from another culture living next door, well, you need to know who is in front of you. You need to know, is it a person who is individualistic or more collective culture style? What is your and their communication style? What does friendship mean for an individualistic person or for a group culture person? What is your motivational strategy? What is our means of rewarding people or discipline people? Let us look at a little example. When I lived in Haiti, one of the church workers embezzled money from the school feeding program. So how was he disciplined? I thought he should have been fired from his job because this was a major misconduct. But the church denomination leadership, they just transferred him to another location. They did not exclude him from the fellowship and wanted to give him the chance or the opportunity to make up his wrongdoings. This is not understandable for Western thinking, who comes out of a guilt culture. So if you live in a cross-cultural setting, you as a me person, you need to definitely sit down and reflect how you have to communicate with a we person, and of course vice versa. You should never forget that management in an individualistic society is management of individuals. On the other side, management in a collectivist society is management of a group. So what does it mean practically for us? You can use the lists above that I gave you to compare your preferences with the preferences of the other cultures. And you can put yourself into the shoes of a we or a me person. Here comes a little exercise for your further reflection. Well, think about or imagine you as a Western person, you get new neighbors that move in or have moved in just a few months ago. And they come from a collective culture. They have a large family. And not only on weekends, but constantly they have a lot of visitors who come in and celebrate and park their cars in the neighborhood streets, and they make a lot of noise. The children play soccer on the street and sometimes even invade your property with their games. They really disrupt your privacy. what would you do? How would you approach them? What could you say to them? Or if you are from a group culture, think about the opposite situation. How can you approach people from an individualistic culture? Well, it would be great if you write it down in the comments. Please leave your answer in the comments of this little exercise, the answers of the exercise in the comment section. And please do not forget to subscribe and click on the little bell to be informed when we publish our next video. With your subscription, you can support our channel. Well, thanks a lot if you do that. And also, do not forget to look at the other videos. If you have not seen the video on the cultural scales, which I mentioned in the beginning, I highly recommend that you watch it now. So again, thank you very much. It was so great to have you with us today and to look at all these different things and the subject. And I'm happy if you join us next time. All right, bye-bye, see you.